So 6 Feet Under premiered in 2001 and went till 2005 for about 5 seasons. And this show is now 20 years old. I have watched through this series twice and then recently rewatched it again with my wife, watching it for the first time with me. And I still love it just as much as I did when I first watched it. And I felt that today was a good time to talk about the series. Now, this is a huge disclaimer what I'm saying here, and to me, 6 Feet Under, even its worst season, is still a good season. So take that with a grain of salt when I start ranking these from the worst seasons to the best seasons. And yeah, because to me, 6 Feet Under is one of those few shows that was solid throughout its whole runtime. It knew when to end, and I recently watched an interview with a lot of the cast members because it turned 20 years old in 2021. And a lot of the cast members were saying how special of a show it was to them and how pretty much, the writers, people usually milk series for all it's worth. This is a series that if it had gone any longer than 5 seasons, to me, I would have lost a lot of interest and it wouldn't have been nearly as good. So, 5-season run was perfect for this show. So I am ranking my worst season to best season in this. And so as you can see behind me, I have 4 of the seasons. I actually did have all 5. Season 1, I lost. I don't know what happened to it, and it kind of makes me mad that I don't have season 1. But, season 1 I have on digital, but I have the rest on physical. So, well, anyways, here we go. So starting off at the worst season, which, like I said, even at 6 Feet Under's worst season, it's still a good season. But that is season 3 of 6 Feet Under. Now, season 3, it pretty much, season 3, it basically was kind of a changing of the show, like its feel at least. Season 1 and 2, this was a show that had a lot of dark humor, and it had its very serious moments for sure, and its very serious moments were very impactful. This season is where the show, based on its characters and relationships, felt a little bit differently, because there was a lot of relationships that were building and establishing in season 1 and 2, and season 3, pretty much, it picks up almost a year after the events of season 2. So it basically takes an event at the end of season 2 and it kind of flashes forward almost a year. And there you're kind of just thrown into everyone's lives at that point. So at least to me, you feel a little bit like, I'm not sure, like where everyone's at right now. And that's kind of how season 3 begins. And season 3 I think there were moments of, there were its funny moments in season 3, but it overall felt like a much darker season. And this is probably the darkest, even though, a show called 6 Feet Under, it has a lot of dark moments, a lot of very serious, depressing, really dark moments. But season 3, in tone, was probably overall the darkest season of the whole series. And this is the bottom for me just because of its tone, how a lot of things that were established in season 1 and 2 really there was just a lot of changes. So it almost felt like the show not necessarily was changing up its formula, but the show just felt a lot different in season 3, and that's why, to me, it's considered the worst season. I still think it's a good season, though. So just slightly above that is I'm going to say 6 Feet Under season 4. Now, season 4 is like where all the darkness from season 3 was. Season 4 was kind of, it's almost returned to form, I would say. I definitely do have some gripes with this season, and I do have gripes with the overall show in general. But season 4 felt a little bit of a return to form. It kind of had like its old feel to it again. And, you know, that's not to say like, you know, if season 3, the tone of season 3 was in season 4, I think it definitely would have affected the show a little bit. But I still think it would have been a solid show. A lot of shows out there kind of have this where once it hits a certain season, the show kind of changes. But I really like season 4. My main gripe with season 4, I would say, is it really, really revolved a lot around sex. And I know the show in general, there's a lot of sex in the show. But season 4, it was like every other scene, it turning around, it was just like, oh, there's a sex scene, oh, there's a sex scene, and everyone's having sex with each other. Like, what is this, Game of Thrones? Like, even though this came way before Game of Thrones, but still, you know, like, this was just like, there was just so many sex scenes, and I'm just like, maybe I'm a little bit alien here, but I'm like, I don't know anyone's life where it's just every encounter they have with someone, they're just having sex with them. I don't know. It's just, it's a little odd to me. But I don't know. Maybe that makes me a prude or something. And, you know, I'm married. But yeah, it's like in this show, like, you know, people are married and having affairs all over the place. And that was my biggest gripe with it. But some of the humor was back in this one. And it had some like really, really sour, really dour moments. But like the season finale of this was definitely a nice change of pace from the season finale of season 3, because that season finale, it just felt like the world was falling apart, basically. And this one, you know, while there were some very serious moments, it kind of was a nice change of pace from the season 3 finale. Like, this had a little more hope to it, I think, in, you know, season 4 finale. At least for the character of David, because David goes through a lot of stuff in season 4, and all the characters go through a lot of stuff throughout the series, but it definitely was like the character of David, played by Michael C. Hall, you know, this was probably his darkest season for sure. But season 4 was a good return to form, and, you know, I still don't think it's as good as the other seasons, but season 4 is pretty solid. A touch above season 4, I think, is season 2 of 6 Feet Under. Season 2, it basically, everything from the first season, it's kind of just building off of that, of the first season. And, you know, season 2, because of season 3, there was a lot of change in a lot of relationships and stuff, and a lot of things had been, you know, changed, where it was like a flash forward in time, and then you were just thrown into these characters' lives. At that point, you're like, whoa, like some stuff definitely changed. You know, 6 Feet Under season 2, like, that was its transition to that period, and it kind of, like, it pretty much just happens from, you know, the very end of this season. Nate, you know, starts going through some stuff that starts from season 1. You know, Nate has a lot of issues with his brain. You know, there's some, you know, past, you know, people from Nate's past that come into play into this season and kind of establish from there. And, you know, like Brenda, if you've seen this show, Brenda is a trip. And season 2 really, really made me hate Brenda. And amazing thing about this show, to go on Brenda for a little bit, Brenda went from completely, like, irredeemable in my eyes on this season, and then, like, from season 3 through the rest of the series, Brenda, I was like, why is Brenda, like, one of my favorite characters now? I was like, I literally hated her guts, like, from season 1 a little bit, season 2, I was just like, she is an awful person. And then the rest of the series, she basically redeemed herself. But that was a big thing with season 2 that really, you know, grinded my gears, was what Brenda does. And, you know, Nate goes through some stuff, and, you know, Nate definitely makes his share of mistakes, but you kind of feel for him a bit. But season 2 is basically just, it's more of the solid stuff from season one, and it builds off of that. And, it's still establishing a lot of, characters and relationships. And so season two, obviously not as high as season one, so you can probably predict where this next, season is going to be placed. But season two is, it's just as good, I would say. It's like neck and neck almost with season one, but to me, season one is just a neck higher. So we're going to talk about that now. And the one that I lost my physical copy to is 6 Feet Under season one. And this is obviously the season that started it all. The pilot episode is probably one of my favorite first episodes of almost any series ever. And that's not to say, 6 Feet Under is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, but the pilot episode just hooks you. To me, it's one of those first episodes, there's a lot of shows where it ended up being amazing as it went on, but, 6 Feet Under was one of those shows. I watched the first episode, I'm like, I want to watch this entire series, like just from the first episode, like it just entices you. And it has so many funny dark humor in the first episode, and season one just has some of its classic moments. And season one has one of my favorite moments of the whole series, and that's where Claire steals a foot off of a corpse that's in the morgue. Claire steals a foot that's in the basement being prepped for a funeral. So she steals this guy's foot that was hacked off, and then to get back at her boyfriend who was spreading rumors about her, she puts his foot inside of his locker. And to me, that's one of the funniest and most twisted moments of the whole series, but that always stuck out to me. And now it's episode 3 or something like that, and I absolutely love that about that moment. And season one, you basically start to fall in love with these characters pretty quickly, while all these characters are so flawed. There's so many things you cannot stand about a lot of characters, at least to me, but there's so many things to also love about them, because there's certain aspects of every character that is that's what makes us human. There's moments where you're I love him or I love her, and then 20 minutes later into the same episode, they do something you're oh my god, that is awful. Why would they do that? The thing about this series is that's the thing that makes us human and such. And season one, while it has sentimental value to me, I still think it's one of the best seasons. It's the second best season to me, and I absolutely love the crap out of it. It's an amazing show, and season one was the thing that kicked it off. This was the first episode. Right after it aired, the show was immediately renewed for season 2. And if this had not gone on past season 1, honestly, season 1 wraps up in a way that that could have been a series finale, and it would have been just a fairly satisfying end to a one season TV show. But obviously, we wanted more than just one season, and luckily we got more than that. And we got 5 great seasons of this great TV show. And lastly, you can't say this too much about a lot of TV shows, but 6 Feet Under season 5, its final season, is actually, to me, the best season of the TV show. And yeah, you really can't say that a lot about certain TV shows. Usually by the time a TV show gets to its last season, it's on its last leg, basically. You're all right, let's wrap this stuff up. Oh man, we only have enough to basically write 4 episodes, but we have to write 12 episodes, crap. And, it just really feels like the writers have run out of ideas on a lot of TV shows, but this, they definitely had a good vision in order to wrap up the show. And the creator, Alan Ball, he said, right when he was creating, the first episode of this series, he basically had an idea in mind how he would wrap up the series. And, even if you don't like a lot about season 5, which it's hard to believe because season 5 is just phenomenal. There's, a couple surprises in season 5. Yeah, they do some stuff where they take some risks for sure, and it pays off because it's you know, a show like this, you're like, wow, like I wouldn't have imagined they would have done something like that, and then they do it. And, you know, couple of, you know, episodes left of the series, and like there's a really major event that happens, and if you've never seen it, obviously I'm not going to spoil it, but there's like a big thing that happens when there's only like 3 episodes left. And then, you know, you're not sure how it's going to go from there, and, you know, how the whole series is going to wrap up. And, you know, if you take anything from this video, the whole series is worth watching just for the last like 10 minutes of the final episode. And if you've ever, you know, if you look on best TV finales of all time, 6 Feet Under is definitely on that list for a good reason. And first time I watched it, I was freaking bawling like a baby, man. And my wife, you know, when we just finished up rewatching this, she was freaking bawling as well. And like, it's not one of those like trying, you know, Oscar bait, trying too hard to like, you know, make you cry, you know, type like movies moments or whatever. It's just like, it hits you like a freaking truck, man. And that's the thing is, you know, that moment alone, like, puts this season at top tier. And not only that, but like a lot of major things happen through this whole season. And a lot of the characters, like, you really come around on in this season. Like, while they still do some pretty bad stuff and such, like, it really has the thought of just, you know, at the end of the day, we're all going to die. And, you know, a lot of the characters, through all their flaws, you still love them. And this season completely, like, establishes that. And that's what I absolutely love about this season. And yeah, like, while there's some new characters like introduced and some new plot lines and such, like, you can't help but love all the OG characters and everything they've gone through. Like, you just, you know, these are some of the best TV characters, I think, in a TV show. And this season, like, they blew it out of the water, absolutely. And that is why it is my #1 best season of 6 Feet Under, is season 5, the final season. So if you have not watched 6 Feet Under, I highly recommend it. If, you know, it's obviously not for everybody, because there's a lot of adult themes in this show. There's a lot of, you know, a show called 6 Feet Under, you know, it's an entire family, you know, that runs a funeral home, and they're super dysfunctional. And, you know, there's a lot of really, really dark humor. And, you know, that's not everyone's cup of tea, is, you know, having this really dark humor, but this show absolutely goes for it. Like, it goes to those places where you're just like, oh my God, this show, like, they really go to those places, and you're like, it really challenges the audience. But it's, to me, one of the best TV shows of all time. It's one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and I will praise this TV show forever. Like, the big, you know, criticism, like I said earlier, is just like, everyone's having sex with all these people and having sex with everyone, and like, that's a big gripe I have with the show. But I know a lot of people will, you know, eat that stuff up on this TV show. Like, that was my big like criticism. But man, yeah, this is an incredible TV show, and minus some of the music choices, like, it's not my cup of tea when it comes to like music choices. They absolutely nail it with the final episode with some music choices, but there's like some stuff in like season 3 and like other certain seasons where it's like, it's just this really corny, soft music, and I'm like, why would they put that in the show? But then again, that's just me. Overall, like, this is a 10 out of 10 TV show, like, minus those minor criticisms. Like, this is an amazing TV show, and I can't recommend it enough, and I will sing its praises forever. You know, as long as there's human beings in the world and they're like, I need a good TV show, this one. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And if you guys have watched to the end of my video, I really appreciate you watching. Give me a thumbs up, share the video around if you really enjoyed it, and let your friends know about it. And if you need to convince them to watch 6 Feet Under, you know, recommend my video to them. Hopefully that will help them, you know, sit down and watch it. But my name is Brett, and I will see you in a future video. Bye.